Hello!
And we're live. We're back.
Woo!
The wall behind us is so white, so let's ask them to guess where are we?
At first, it should give you a hint that we're together in person, which
Yay! And you can see we're so complimentary. She's so red and I'm so gray.
yeah, but it is a bit chilly here where we are. Where we are? Where are
Not
we?
not because of the natural environment, but because of the air conditioning in this building. That's why I'm wearing this.
We are in New York.
Woo!
We're following, I mean, everything. I mean, not me. I'm not following ONGA, the United Nations General Assembly. Teter is, so she will have to tell us all about it. But at the same time, so many things are happening. This is the climate week, so there have been many activities surrounded precisely by civil society,
Mm-hmm.
the social movements, environmentalists, the fossil fuels, those that are tracking the fossil fuels industries, and well, the people working on economic justice. So many things. Feminists organizing many things, including sessions on feminist foreign policy, feminists or discussing the pact for the future, everything. So it's really it's wild. Everybody's here. The transit in the streets is crazy. When you're trying to cross the street, all of the bus, everybody's passing the lights, so you don't know where to cross the street. It's really dangerous. It's
And what's more, some people really get affected because as soon as a head of state leaves with his entourage, traffic literally stops. This afternoon, just as we were going to our event, one of our friends, Mabel Bianco,
oh,
she was a
Mabel.
speaker in our event, but she was late. And then when she came, she said, "I'm really sorry. I was standing there for 1 hour because Joe Biden was leaving the UN and passing, with all of the security, Secret Service, blah blah. So she got stuck for 1 hour."
Insane.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and all of the leaders are here, and Guterres, embarrassing Guterres, gave his address today to the General Assembly. So
You'll have to say something about that for sure.
there are many rumors.
Can we talk about those
Yeah, of
rumors?
course.
Okay.
I mean, of course, these are rumors, right? Nothing is confirmed. But Portuguese civil society is hinting the possibility that Guterres will run for prime minister in Portugal. So that
Ooh.
means he will project to step down from his administration here in his period early.
Mm.
So, but those are rumors, right? And this is just everything can happen. But he got what he wanted. He was adding so much pressure to get his agenda, the pact for the future, what our friend Pooja calls it the pact with no future. It's really a useless document. We are very critical of it. They're just ratifying everything that exists in the current world that brought to this harm. It's at 40 something pages long.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's going to read it because it's non binding. So let's just finish with that and come back to the real world and see what is next on real multilateralism.
Yeah, but maybe a little bit of the gossip also because not everyone has been following this
Yeah,
process,
yeah.
no? So what is happening now, or what has happened in the last 4 days, is the summit of the future. We had an episode before talking about what this summit is all about, but
And remember, a
mm,
year ago, we had another episode on our common agenda, OCA, that
mm,
was the projected plan of Guterres to implement this Pact for the
yep,
Future. And the summit is hosting these conversations related to the Pact of the
exactly.
Future.
So the last 2 days,
This
um,
episode so political.
indeed.
Very profound.
So the last 2 days was the official culmination of this negotiations process called the Summit of the Future, and it aimed to produce three important documents. No? The Pact for the Future, which is like the overarching document, and the two annexes. One would be the Global Digital Compact, and the other one is the Declaration on Youth. Yeah. So it's been what, 9 months of negotiations. So the Pact for the Future is the main document. It has undergone five versions. No? So when you hear people say Rev 1, Rev 2, Rev 3, Rev 4, Rev 5, so many revs, but there's nothing revolutionary about this document, because a lot of the provisions there have been objected to by member states.
That's what is interesting about the rev,
Mm.
because you have the draft and the negotiated text and whatever, and then there is a final document. And so the co-facilitators submit that and say, okay, this is the final document for every government to approve. And they said it's going to undergo a procedure that is silent. It's called the silent procedure. So if everybody stays quiet and don't break the deadline for the silent procedure, then the document is expected to understand that it has the consensus and it goes to the next stage.
It gets passed.
So that it's sent to the General Assembly first, to be approved. So what happened is that there has been five revs, meaning 5 times a final document was submitted and someone broke the silence.
Someone's not happy.
No, but in this case, it's hilarious and honestly ridiculous because the first four were broken in more than 60% of the entire document. So it's like an obscene amount of paragraphs were broken by everybody. So everybody hated it really, really, really. So they started to slow down, and there were a lot of speculation. What if this document is not approved? So a lot of bullying happened. This didn't happen. This isn't the ideal document that member states wanted. Even the G77, if you recall, we talked about this last year, was bullied into the negotiations. They didn't want this, and they actually said it's too many negotiations. We don't have the capacity. We cannot discuss everything. Everything is happening in parallel rooms. For instance, the digital compact requires a lot of technical expertise, and the Pact for the Future itself, it talks about everything: social protection, women,
AI,
financial institution,
Security Council.
Everything is there. And you know what happened? That they copied and pasted existing documents, even in fossil fuels. They
That's
literally
what I
copied
heard.
the language that came out in Dubai.
In Dubai.
So it's like, what is inspirational about this text? What is, it's going to help us advance multilateralism? They're literally copy pasted everything in the women's document, in women's agenda, everything. There is not one single thing that you say, this is advancing anything. And that's how it got approved and consensus. But also, it has very nasty language ratifying the current status quo. For instance, the language on debt, it literally says that the countries are going to abide by the common framework of the G20 and the IMF. So it's just like, and there were countries like Pakistan and their groups who were breaking constantly the silence, saying, we don't want this language on debt. We don't want this to be approved because what we want is precisely a debt convention, a mechanism which we can discuss this under the premises of the UN. So the G77 fought very hard on all of the fronts. And in the end, as I said, they were bullied to accepting this document. And a lot of civil society here.
Wait, let's save that. Let's save that
Okay.
Because it's really disgusting.
I'm just angry.
Yeah.
It is really disgusting.
Let's start first with the member states.
Yeah.
During the opening plenary, everyone was excited. There's lots of performances from choirs, artists, etc. So it was really a good show.
No, let's go with that.
Okay,
Because in
okay.
2015, when the 2030 agenda was approved, it was the Pope and Shakira, and it was ridiculous as well. But then years down the line, last year it was a K-pop group, BTS.
Yes.
And this year, guess who was there? Hello Kitty. Can you guess how low the UN has fallen? It's just ridiculous. It's virtually, like, why are you inviting Hello Kitty as the main guest to open up?
I think it's quite disrespectful, no? To say the least. It's very disrespectful for
Ah,
heads of states, to be greeted by Hello Kitty.
it's just
But it's not just Hello
so
Kitty. There's
surreal.
so many other
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
performances. So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like really it's a show. They tried to put on a good show. So finally the plenary session opened, opening remarks, etc. And then immediately the Russian Federation
Ah, yeah.
raised its flag.
Yes.
So the Russian Federation wanted to introduce an amendment to say that um, there's really heavy criticism on the process.
It's true.
The negotiations have not really been completed and concluded because
Which
there's
is
so
true.
many open issues, and therefore they're calling for um, to extend the negotiations and not to adopt anything
Yeah.
at the opening session. So that was like Emilia and I were texting yesterday. I said, "Yes, Russia draws first blood."
Legally,
Hmm.
Russia was right. Because even if the summit was scheduled for to happen now in September, legally the negotiations of the General Assembly are going to continue. I mean, the General Assembly is the period where member states meet to discuss everything and
Mm-hmm.
approve every document that has been discussed throughout the year. So the calendar for the General Assembly is really long. I mean, people is here, the excitement, the summits and stuff, but there is a lot of technical space to continue until I think early October. So the negotiations could have taken this space and really recognized what the concerns of many members, especially the G77, and then if officially the co-facilitators finish their mandate because it
Mm.
comes with a change of the president of the General Assembly, the new president of the General Assembly could have appointed another
New
set of
set, yeah.
co-facilitators or ratify those that were there because they were accompanying the process for so long, and so give some ample time to have the negotiations. But what they did is just a mess. They really wanted the party, and Guterres again meddling, like imposing his presence and his ego as a macho man who wants to feature regardless of the state of the world. So he forced everybody, and then he forced the process. And of course developed countries were totally on his side because
Mm-hmm.
it ratifies everything that it's dirty and horrible that they do. And so this is why they're bullying every single small country into accepting. So what Russia was saying, I think you were saying, like they were punishing the.
The messenger, but not the message. I
Yeah.
mean, if somebody else raised that point, I think it would have merited some discussion. But no, because it's Russia who raised that point. And the sad thing is, the African Union already had a prepared counter amendment.
Oh,
It's like after Russia spoke, Congo, on behalf of the African Union, raised its flag to say that we're also introducing an amendment. We are now proposing that we do not act on Russia's amendment. And that's what they voted on. So it's not even 30 minutes into the opening, they
there was
already put
drama.
a vote. No, there's a drama already, such that I don't know, I have a photo of how many member states supported the motion, how many rejected the motion, and how many abstained. So in the end, the proposal from the Russian Federation was only supported by the usual suspects,
Yeah.
the bad messengers: Syria, Iran, Venezuela. So, these are not the most popular countries in the United Nations. So,
But
no matter how sound, how, they make perfect arguments, but they're not the good messengers.
but that's the thing, right? And that's what leads me to the issue of civil society.
Mm.
So civil society was cheering, and they were like, "Yeah, we want the document
Oh
approved."
my
It's like, have
gosh.
you read it? Have you read it? Have you been in the process? Have you been in the negotiation? Have you seen how it has been excluding you? That everything was so wrong. That corporations were given the room. That you were only given 2 minutes. That even for the inputs that they submitted, the UN used AI. Literally, there's like they received the inputs, and the AI was counting how many words we received on women, how many words we received on girls and on youth, and they would just give the number of word count, and that was
Mm.
literally, oh, this paragraph is going to have more support, and then it says here that what we're saying is good, because it
That
was,
is so sad.
you cannot believe
Yeah.
the level. It's just embarrassing. So I think civil society is, what, schizophrenic, I don't know to be honest, there were some groups that held its line, like APRSEM, the
Mm-hmm.
Asia Pacific Regional Forum. They held their ground and they boycotted, and they said, we're not even going to be there, this is embarrassing, and they criticized us and rejected from the start. Same with the financing for development mechanism. We said we are not going to support this. This is a disgrace. And precisely, we're going to leave here, it is going to lead us to the second conversation, which is, they were trying to say that this was going to address the new multilateralism, the inspirations for the new, what is going to come. And this is why it has language on the reform of the financial architecture, but it's just not true. And then that's where we saying we need to prepare for a proper fight for real proposals that will be used in the financing for development conference that is going to happen next year. We've been talking about it for FFD forever in the Spice Girls
We
session.
sound like a broken record.
But again, no, the
Yeah.
conference is happening. It's gonna
Mm.
happen. I came from Ades, where we had the first conference. I think we already discussed
We
that.
did. We did.
So things are happening, and it's like, why are you giving light to this pact for the future that is ratifying the role of the IMF and the G20 and the World Bank, and that is just using the shitty language on fossil fuels that we got in Dubai? And it's to be honest, the language on
Mm-hmm.
fossil fuels would have been so key if they had stated a radical message, so that the UNFCCC would finally not only have a mention
Yeah.
as of reference, but they did it the other way around. They really don't want to touch any interest, and so that is a disgrace. And so, why is civil society cheering when there is an upcoming process very soon in which we could have all come together? But then people were really in global chats saying, oh, why is the document not approved? What is happening? Why are the bullies not accepting the document? It's like, are you listening to yourself? Do you have any critical analysis at all? So yeah, it's
Yeah, that's quite disappointing, no? Because even those groups, and I will not name names yet, yeah, yet. Even those groups that say they are fierce, they're critical. Oh, I already gave you a hint. Uh, they're calling for systemic changes. Careful. It's like they could not really see the big
no.
picture. Some are even saying that if the pact for the future is not adopted, that would be the end of multilateralism. I almost fell on my chair,
Same.
no? It's like, what the heck are you talking about? Do you even
Ridiculous.
hear yourself?
Ridiculous.
It's like this pact for the future that we have been analyzing through a critical feminist lens, you're saying that this should be adopted no matter what
No matter
cost.
what, because you want the document. And to be honest, what we have been discussing here very lightly, because we haven't really had many sessions this year, but we have said how concerned we are with the genocide in Palestine. And what is happening in Lebanon and in so many spaces. And there are also many other genocides that are not even
Mm-hmm.
coming to light, but
Yeah.
precisely because they're happening in the global south, it's like those lives are disposable, we don't care, and we are outraged. And but the other end is like Gaza, that has had so much featuring in the UN rapporteurs recommendations, in the ICJ, with the ICC, and the Security Council itself, and the General Assembly with
Mm.
the special resolutions. And still the Western empire, those that are upholding it, they just dismissing and dismantling the multilateralism for their own convenience, because it is very clear that they're only going to use it to punish the global south, to impose their logics of extraction, destruction for their own consumption, the predatory measures that are
Mm.
really ending life. So multilateralism ended when we saw how, despite the recommendations, the positionings by legally binding bodies, they're just dismissing them and saying the multilateralism and the multilateral bodies serve my interests, my voice, my views, my interpretation, and my power. And so that's what we have been very critical in the multilateral system as it is now, in which we are saying, are we going to uphold it? Is this what we are wanting
Mm.
to support? But then on the other hand, we are saying we want to reclaim back the UN and these multilateral bodies. This is
Yep.
why we keep on
Mm-hmm.
having the fight. So when these people say, oh, there's the end of multilateralism because the Pact for the Future is not approved, it's like, this is
Yeah.
a non-binding document. This is ridiculous. This is asserting exactly the same colonial and imperial order. Are you listening to yourself? Are you thinking?
This also reminds me of when the SDGs were adopted.
Oh, yes.
It's very very similar, no? The SDGs were adopted in 2015 after a 2-year preparatory process, starting with the open working group. And I think because civil society feels like it has been part, they were sucked into this narrative or illusion that they developed the SDGs, that they contributed to the Pact for the Future. That's to say it short, they've been co-opted. No, they've been co-opted in the process, leading them to believe that they own these documents, they own this development agenda. So that was also the same when the SDGs were adopted. Everyone was cheering, yay! The same with the Paris Agreement.
The Paris Agreement.
Everyone
That's
was
interesting.
cheering.
In the Paris Agreement, some of us stayed until the final moment, but most of the civil society left to Paris because
Party.
to drink champagne in the street because the Paris Agreement had been approved. And we were shocked because we had been throughout the entire negotiations of the SDGs and the Paris Agreement. And it's like, we fought so hard and we knew exactly what was missing, and that it was these documents were not even half of what they should have been, just to deliver at the minimum. And this is why the SDGs are not being delivered, because we knew from the start
Yeah.
what it was. And we were very depressed. And yeah, we will tell you later. The Paris Agreement sent me to bed with depression for like a month and a half. But they were celebrating, and now they are celebrating, and we don't know what they are celebrating. Please, someone tell us, what do you like about the Pact for the Future? Like, what do you think? Oh, this is really revolutionary. It's gonna transform the multilateral arena. And we will read that in the next episode, and we will say, okay, you're right about that. But really give us something that is saying, okay, this is just fundamentally radical, inspirational for the world, and everybody needs to follow it. So send us that you think that is just
Wow.
like,
So we're starting a trend now. Let's make it viral, no?
it's just
Yes. What makes the Pact for the Future
inspirational for you,
inspirational?
that
Yeah?
you think, oh, this is really really good, this is
Let us
new.
know. Let us know
Let us know.
if we can come up with a list from 1 to 10.
We are the worst.
We'll read all 10 responses. Yeah, but maybe that could be a challenge for everyone, no? Let's see. Let's find something good about the Pact for the Future.
It's gonna say, oh, we ratify the importance of women's participation, and it's like, no, no, nothing that is already there. No, we don't tell us that you like, oh, there is a reference on public um, services. No, be serious, be serious.
There's a reference on governing intergalactic.
Yeah, that is new.
That's inspirational. Imagine they can't even sort our own governance here on Earth, and they're already talking about governance intergalactic. So can you imagine that? So anyway, that's the Pact for the Future for you.
Yeah.
So it's quite absurd that after 9 months of negotiations, basically it's a copy paste exercise from already existing
Yeah.
agreements. We have not really seen anything new or major announcement, and that's it. But I think interestingly, within 1 hour that the plenary started, heads of states were already taking the center stage. And of course, you know how it is. The world press is all eyes on the leaders who came here
Oh
all
yeah,
the
yeah.
way in New York.
That's another
And
story.
then everyone was just saying all the right things, all the inspirational things. But there were also a few who were quite critical. No, few heads of states who took the stage and were quite critical in their pronouncements.
Boom.
Um, Mia Motley for
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Yeah,
And Petro already.
yeah.
We love
So
Petro.
it's also the usual suspects.
Yeah.
No, you can count in the hands, the fingers on your hands,
Yeah.
how many heads of states would actually say something critical, not to trash the system, but at least to, poke
Mm.
at the system.
Mm.
Because they're heads of state, they will not be expected to crash to
Yeah.
trash the system.
Yeah, it's a very conservative space. We knew that from the start. I think what is interesting, as usual, is what is happening outside. That people is gathering. That there
Yep.
have been so
Mm-hmm.
many strategy meetings um, on different movements, and civil society also takes this opportunity to meet with donors and to say, like, when are you giving me money? You want this transformation so badly, you want all of these reports, but then look at the real state of
Mm-hmm.
affairs. And if you want deliverable, you need to give us core funding, you need to give us support, you need to give infrastructure for social movements because the INGOs are not gonna do it. So there are interesting conversations in the sidelines about, and these tensions come to the surface every year. So this is why people is coming, and social movements, the indigenous peoples are here, ratifying the relevance of their agendas. And I think that is really
Yeah,
important.
it's important because we don't get the support that we need to do for us to be able to do the work that we need to do.
Yeah.
Aside from not getting any support, our governments are running after us, no?
Yeah.
Arresting, harassing, silencing.
Yes. The other thing is, I don't know if you took an eye on the Global Digital Compact. I mean,
No, no, not really.
it is bad. Um, so it tackles generally the points of entry of the digital agenda, but there are so many missing pieces
Mm-hmm.
that make it very flawed. I'm not an expert, of course, at all, but I've been following the conversations that my colleagues are having. They think at least it's a good start, so that the AI in the UN has started to increase.
Mm-hmm.
But then the issue is precisely on the role of corporations and how are you going to regulate them and how are they going to be engaging, but also no environmental dimension. Can't you believe it? No environmental dimension on anything about the digital agenda. I just cannot believe it. And I inquired the negotiators who are working on this, and they were like, we were rejected from the start. This was not allowed to pass, not even in the first draft. So when there was some push to try to include it in the later stages, there was just like, there is no room, there is no capacity. This will have to be negotiated.
Mm.
This discussion about the faculties, about who has the faculty to discuss the environmental dimension. But it was like UNEP, or it's ridiculous. So it's this agenda is showing the limits of the current multilateral system for the worst. So there is that issue of regulation, the
Mm-hmm.
issue, and one major thing, the issue of risks. How are we gonna tackle the risk? How are we gonna assess the risk and stuff? So that was also very much undermined and not tackled at all. So why does the Global South want a discussion on the digital agenda, if not also to assess risks that are coming paired up with our sovereignty?
Yeah.
In terms of data, of
Mm-hmm.
the generation of data, of ownership, but also of so many things. Precisely what happened, for instance, with in Lebanon. you have
The
the
pagers, no? Yeah.
pager, and now it's used to blow up people. 3,000 people harmed in a very serious manner. I don't know how many deaths are now, but it was terrible since the first day. 9 people dead. It's just grotesque. The use and the the whole chain of process of production and consumption, and and the waste management that has to come. So it's really a very bad document in those terms. We need to be, as we always do in the Spice Girls, we have a systemic eye, a structural eye. You cannot just stay in what is in the surface of the
Mm.
digitalization, which is fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
There's language on violence against women, and it's fair enough. It's important, but what is also in the structural part that is unseen, and those elements are so critical and so crucial, and that are shaping the situation of humanity now. So where are they? They're nowhere to be seen. And then again, the document was pushed, and they were forced to accept and adopt. So now there is another negotiation I don't understand well, is WISIS, that has a history of addressing these issues. So there is the hope that there will be a closer linkage between the.
Ah, the World Summit for the Information Society.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
then still again is like the content part,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, and this was expected to expand the realm of what was going to be discussed. It didn't. So now we are still waiting. When is going to be a convention on technology that regulates really the risks, from a human rights, gender equality, environmental dimension, and this also assessing the balances of power.
I
That is
think,
what we were calling from. We've been
yeah,
calling for years.
I think the problem here with this big agreements is that people are not looking at they're looking at the trees, but they're
Yeah.
not looking at the forest.
Yeah.
So I heard earlier in this event that we organized, there are parts in the document that you can use. There are some good things here, some good things there.
The little leaf in the.
Yeah, so for me
I
that's
like
so
this leaf.
sad. It's like, so that's now how we are. That's now how the world should be.
We are
Take
leaf
the good that
watchers.
you can get from a big document, but without also recognizing that even if there's something good, the big picture is
It's
still
rotten.
bad. So
It's rotten.
how can you realize the little good that there is in that document if the big thing is really regressive?
Yeah.
So
I
it's
mean,
like
yeah.
it's quite sad,
It's
no?
really sad. I mean,
Yeah.
we can wait until our experts on the digital agenda let
Mm.
us know their thinking. I think for me, the link between digital and technology sometimes cannot be undermined. And this is where there is this link with environmental impacts and stuff. But even the risks are there for the digital agenda, and we've seen how Elon Musk and stuff. So let us see. We can wait to
Yeah.
lay our final assessment on that. But definitely no environmental dimension. And going back to the Pact of the Future, we forgot to mention that there was a reference on climate and war, the linkages,
Mm.
and those were deleted. By whom, you may
Guess
ask?
who?
Is really a document that fits the powerful. And why are we expected to celebrate or say, oh, I'm so glad the multilateral system has been saved?
Actually, that's the point raised by Russia. It's like this agenda has been dictated upon by some Western
Yeah,
powers.
all of
So
them.
they were very explicit in that mention. And of course, we all know who those Western powers are.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's the pact for the future. I don't know if I can imagine a future with that kind of pact.
I'm just saying, luckily, it's a non binding document. It's so long.
But
Nobody's
it's
going to
going
read
to
it.
expire. It has a very short shelf life. I'm a mother and I'm just thinking, what's the expiration date of this carton of milk? So when I look at the pack for the future, it has a very short shelf life because it's attached to the SDGs, which is 2030. So we are now 2024, almost 2025. So all this hoopla for the next
Oh,
5 years. And you know what? Incredible. People are already talking about a post 2030.
goals.
development agenda. There's another big meeting happening next year. It's the Second World Summit on Social Development, and that is where they will discuss a post 20 how the how we've been so ravaged by the SDGs and how we're going to pick up the pieces after Agenda 2030. So, it's like it's not worth it.
It's not
It's
worth
not worth
it.
it. Yeah. Give me something
I
nice.
was gonna say
Let's
the
give the audience something nice. Probably people who are watching, oh, here's the two again.
same. Oh
Always
yeah, the
bitching and
trashing
bitching.
everything.
But that's one part. But we're also here because, as Emilia said earlier, civil society and social movements also take this opportunity to come together and have deeper conversations outside the UN,
Yeah.
because you cannot go inside the UN.
Actually, I don't have a ticket,
Yeah.
so it's all of these days. I don't have a ticket.
Yeah, so this process now, we had to register for a special event ticket. It's funny,
Tell them.
for
Tell
the
them.
I had to queue up and I had to register and queue up to get a ticket for the action days. So those were 2 days. And then I had to register and queue up again for 1.5 hours to get my special ticket for the summit itself. And then that's not all.
Queuing up 1 hour and a half.
Yes, under the sun, no? And then the official opening of the summit, you have to be there in the UN as early as 7 a.m. so that you can queue up and pick up your special ticket for the plenary hall. Those are very limited. It's not even it's not even choice seats. We're just in the balcony, and each head of state is only this big, no? It's only this big. And since it's very limited, you have to queue up to get special tickets for the overflow room. So
Why?
it's like people were thinking, one, why can't they give all the tickets in one go? That's the logical and most efficient way to do
Yeah.
things. Second, I did not travel all the way to New York. It's spending, so much money, etc., carbon footprint, only to be told that there are no more tickets, so I can go to the overflow room
Because you can watch it online,
because
actually.
you can watch it online. So it's like it's crazy. It doesn't make any sense. And then the UN staff, of course, people are bitching at them, and then they will say, "Oh, but there's only very few of us. We don't have any resources, etc., etc."
We have 15 minutes and
Oh my
we're just
gosh!
bitching. We're very good at bitching, We have 15
Mm.
minutes, and I think we need to update on the latest conversation on climate finance because there was the more recent TED, which is a technical dialogue on the NCQG, the new collective quantifiable climate finance goal. It is a mess.
Mm-hmm.
So the new goal is expected to be approved in Baku in November, which is
6 weeks from now.
nothing. Tomorrow, in 30 minutes. This was the final TED before the COP. So the countries have been, we've told you about this since last year when we were attending the TEDs, and first it was informally and the Zoom conversations. How do you envision it? The workshops. We all had capacity to attend and input, etc. And then it became some sort of negotiation process with a draft. And we told here what happened in June, that there was a huge document and the member states were saying we cannot work on this, but there are some hints about what each really wanted. So developed countries really wanted to expand the contributor base, which means we're not going to pay. So we need to add more to the list because the money is not going to come from us. And that was really what they're going to say. At the heart of whatever they're saying, contributor base. Second is the amount. Is like we need to state and recognize that last year we gave the $100 billion because there is a report by the OECD that estimates that But at the same time, another report by Oxfam says we've never reached the full
Mm.
amount. So the conversations in the negotiations go for hours. We should quote the OECD report. No, we should quote Oxfam. Well, let's should quote both, but one is negating the other. So we cannot. So it's just disgrace. But then the final one, which is precisely what it's the heart of the matter, well, there are many, but the quantum, the amount, how much money is going to be there, or what is the estimation of the delivery, or the process towards we're going to quantify that. The quantum is not just the amount. For us, there are many things implied
Mm.
there. And of course, for civil society, is the principles around it, that it has to be direct access to reach, so many things, CBDR, and there are so many conversations we need to have on the role of the CBDR and convention versus agreement, which is really key in the gossip. And so they went into the final TED, and the developed countries refused to even go there. So the TED ended, and there has not been any proposal in the table. So how are we gonna get to Baku with just 2 weeks for negotiations,
Mm.
without even having an amount, an estimation? So actually, we are very much concerned and worried, and we think it's gonna be a failure.
But while that is very pragmatic, Brazil, who is hosting the COP30,
Yeah.
already said we don't want any of those messy finance stuff. You have to sort it out in Baku.
Mm,
Don't bring it to Brazil.
mm,
So that already gives you an idea,
yeah.
or it's like it's going to be a messy fight, because it's not just about the quantity, the
No,
how much.
exactly.
It's also about who pays,
Yeah.
because the rich countries
It's
are
about
now
the donor
saying,
base, expanding the
yeah,
donor base, no?
everyone has to contribute.
Contributor base.
Who receives? And this matter of who receives climate finance is also quite tricky, because some of the developed countries are saying it should be the Africa LDC SIDS. But then that is very, very tricky, because that would mean they're trying to break up the unity of all developing countries by saying that there's special attention for LDCs and SIDS. It should be all developing countries should be able to access and receive climate funds. And yeah, how will the money be delivered?
Yeah.
It's grants, it should be public money, but they're now bringing in insurance, guarantees, and
Do you miss me?
Cherie!
Do you miss me, guys? Did you miss me from the spring meetings? From the springs to the Onga?
Yeah.
We're so glad you're here. We tried to have this episode with Shireen, but she has been super busy. And then we said, okay, let's try to do it, both of us, and hopefully Shireen can arrive. And she did in the final 10 minutes. Woo! Shireen, we are telling our friends about the NCQG, the mess about the NCQG, and what are our expectations towards Baku. I'm very, Tete says pragmatic. I'm very pessimistic.
I was being kind.
So I guess in the next episode we would have to speculate what is going to happen in the worst scenario. I think negotiators are starting to also have that conversation, but of course this is not something that needs to happen in public, because the G77 developing countries need to stand strong and not
Mm.
accept anything. It's the decent thing, and the world should not accept from developed countries their bullying, and they're saying, oh, let's have the contributor base. No, but it is very concerning at this moment that we are in that situation. So I think this just happened in the past 2 weeks, the
Mm-hmm.
the recent death. And so I think this is one of the things that we needed to discuss. And so now also there was this new appointment for the loss and damage fund.
Oh yeah, executive
Executive
director.
director is someone from
Africa?
Senegal.
Senegal?
Senegal. We just read its CV. It says that, oh, it has been everywhere, from the banks to the grassroots to the rural communities to advisor. We will map him out and we will come back.
Happy for him, but I don't know.
Yeah,
And I asked it around. I don't know.
we
But
will be
happy
at.
for him. Happy for him. Let's cheer up having a global South leader, African leader.
Definitely.
Happy for him.
Definitely.
He definitely has the heart.
And the conversations are also starting in the World Bank about the negotiations about the terms of how are they going to host the loss and damage funds, and whether they will be abiding by the let's say the conditions that in the UNFCCC were negotiated, that say this is what we wanted, and see if the World Bank is going to deliver on that, or if they're going to force them into their usual practices of
Mm.
keeping a lot of the money from the core, the
Yeah.
admin, and then also conditioning the way it's going to be delivered. So there is a very strong pull and take happening now with the World Bank on
Yeah,
that.
because actually it is scary. I mean, let's admit it. Having a mechanism like the loss and damage fund under the World Bank is super scary
Yeah.
because it's going to fill under the World Bank policies and mechanisms. So, like what happened to the SDRs, for example, it's another story. But what happened to the SDRs when the IMF hosted it, turned into a debt mechanism.
Yep.
The RST, the RSF, etc. So the last thing after all the struggle that the people had to have the loss and damage fund is to have the loss and damage fund as a new instrument for the World Bank to create
More debt.
more debt under the name of loss and damage and development.
Mm.
So it's scary.
Yeah, and that's the issue of the principles. But let's, before we wrap up, that
Yeah.
tell them about the tension between the convention and the Paris Agreement. This is a huge thing. So we close with a mega
Yeah.
big gossip.
So, we all know about the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. That is the foundation of all of the negotiations on how countries will respond to the threat of climate change. Yeah? So it talks about historical responsibility of rich countries. It talks about rich countries supporting developing countries with finance, capacity building,
Yeah.
technology, etc. These are now fundamental principles for climate action and international cooperation. But then the Paris Agreement does not mention any of those things. Yeah? The Paris Agreement is now being used by the rich
But
countries.
what does it say?
Um, it's all on the basis of international cooperation
That all of us
that,
are gathered
yeah,
here to take
everyone
action.
should contribute to solving the problem of climate change. So there's no reference to historical responsibility.
But there is the quotation of the articles in the UNFCCC, but
Mm.
precisely they didn't want it to bring it there, and that by rejection of the developed countries. So, and now precisely because it's more and more washed out, then that's their argument that they're saying that there is no reference when there is a reference
Yeah,
to
that's
the
going to be the
paragraph.
big fight
Yeah.
in Baku because rich countries want to demolish the convention. They keep saying it's only CMA, parties to the Paris Agreement. It's no longer parties to the convention because they want to delete any and all reference. No, so that's going to be one big fight.
It's disgusting because they want to undermine the then again, this is our discussion on the global financial architecture, and now this is the global architecture of the environmental integrity field, right? So it's undermining the institution so that you only get the paper. And this is what we're saying, there is no paper that can be upholded without an institution. This is why we're saying in technology we want a convention on technology.
Yes.
On debt we want a convention on debt, on precisely because the convention has a mandate to follow up, to implement, to give advice, to demand finance, and to there's so many things. That's a convention. That's why we're calling for a tax convention, etc. And there's a demand. We will talk about this in future episodes on the FFG, but this is why we want convention on so many things,
Yes.
because the institution matters even more than the document, because even if the document is short, you will get a second chance maybe 3 years from now, 4 years from now, to keep on pushing. So the fact that they're doing the opposite and dismantling the convention and
Yeah.
saying oh, the Paris Agreement could actually be hosted anywhere and it could just live on its own. And so let's demolish the entire thing. It's very dangerous. And, the US is speaking about it, and the EU is like, la, 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 but they're definitely supporting. They're very hypocritical and saying, oh, no, no, these
So
are the,
not cool.
they come with their lawyers and stuff, and the EU are like, let's wait, what do the lawyers of the US say? It is really nasty, and it is happening in every space in the climate negotiations. We've seen it in every track, but when it happens to the finance, it is a very big issue, precisely because it's at the heart. Who has the mandate?
Yeah.
Who has the commitments? And we've already said the commitments come in the developed countries. So big gossip before closing.
Wait, let's hear from Shireen.
Tell us, what
Well,
have you been doing?
So happy that you could join
yeah,
us.
thank you, thank you. I don't have a lot of gossips. Rather than I spend a fortune in the taxi trying to go to an event, and I wasn't allowed in.
No.
Yeah, because they said that it's only ambassadors. I think I'm an ambassador of peace. Let me in, please. Anyway, so I'm pissed off. But otherwise, it's the same old story. I mean, I cannot say after the summit of no future, and I really don't. I don't see any reason behind it, to be honest. I mean, I'm happy for them if they want to sit together and discuss stuff, but I don't see a point. So it's disappointing, especially now, and I'm super disappointed also of the UN General Secretary Guterres.
Yes.
Because the opening in this time, and it's a second it is second, I mean, round. So I don't think that he's waiting to be re-elected to be politically that not I mean, like, to be politically not correct at all. Not opening the summit of no future with a whole big session around how this global economical architecture is failed, and we need to bring out new methodologies of the 21st centuries. It doesn't work anymore like this, without mentioning that in this 21st century, under this failed
She has been
economical global structure, there's a genocide is happening on TV. On TV, they are going to have commercial breaks while people are dying. This is what we are waiting now. So I am pissed off. To be
Yeah.
honest, I'm pissed off.
And we should all be.
Yeah.
And when he talks about the failure of the international institution, yeah, you run one and you've been there for 2 terms. It's like, shut up.
Yeah.
So it's disgusting.
The United Nations are not united anymore.
We also have some gossip on who's gonna come into the new term, if there's a woman, and what are the candidates, and some comments, but we're run out of time. So you will have to join us in the next episode.
Sneak preview if you want the gossip.
Thank you so much for joining, and we hope we'll see you soon. Shireen, thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me. Love you guys.
See you. Thank you.
And